distant future in a movie critic's dream. A monkey and Cthulhu take films to the extreme. They'll rant and rave about the fact that Colin Farrell should not act. If you think that it sounds like fun, then grab some popcorn and hit the play button, cause it's time for Obsolete Opinions.
You need anything, my lords?
Down in front! God, I hate it when people talk during the movie. Greetings, human filth! Hi everybody, Sean here again. Also known as Cthulhu, and with me as always is Sock Monkey.
Hello.
So here we are talking today about Mitchell and the Mystery Science Theater 3000 treatment of it. Now, for those of you who don't know, Mystery Science Theater 3000 was a show that came out in the early 90s and was based off the simple premise of making fun of bad movies. They'd take any film that had no copyright protection, much like, say, Night of the Living Dead or a lot of the old giant radioactive monster movies, and then they would sit down, chop it up, edit it into their time frame, and then simply sit there and rip it to shreds.
The more you got into different films and the obscurity of them, the more jokes that you kind of got, the further MST3K went in the reference to other things.
Oh god, yeah. And the Misties have quoted that they will always keep the show available and free online at all times. So if you really want to watch this episode, you can easily find it online, along with almost every other episode. Quick plot point on the television show. Dr. Forrester has decided that he will take over the world, and the best way to take over the world is to show the entire populace the worst film ever made, and that will break the will of every single human being. And so he shot a man into space to test that. And his test subject was Joel Robinson, a mild-mannered employee at Gizmonic Institute. And for 5 years now, he's been showing him films. And at this point, Joel has made robots, he's made friends, they've ripped on bad movies, and Gypsy believes that the Mads are going to kill Joel, so she wants him off the ship. Now, sorry if you don't know who Gypsy is, or the Mads, or some of the other stuff, you'll just basically have to look into the show.
So they've been notorious for not always making friends through the movies that they make fun of. And I guess Mitchell is one of the more notorious ones for them, in the fact that Joe Don Baker was pretty unpleased with the final product.
Yeah, rumors have it that he did threaten the boys. And then later, I believe Tom Servo stated that they believed he said it jokingly, but if you take a look at Joe Don Baker, it probably wasn't a joke.
Now, if you've ever seen the movie Walking Tall, or the original version anyways, it stars Joe Don Baker, but he only did it about 2 years before this movie, and he looks about 15 years older in Mitchell, so I don't know what really happened to him during that time.
It's like the success party of Walking Tall ended like a week before this movie started, and he just never stopped eating steak and butter. Like, it's insane.
Yeah, I mean, I know that's supposed to be his character and all, but something tells me it was playing the role a little too seriously, maybe.
Yeah. So we're going to be talking a little bit about how important this episode is to the MST3K universe, and then we're going to be ripping Mitchell to shreds.
This one takes place right in the middle of Season 5, and there were some things going on behind the scenes of the actual production that I guess eventually led to Joel departing from the show.
Yeah, Joel did not like the direction that the show was going. He disagreed with a lot of stuff that was going on, and he flat out quit. And it was one of those things where he's like, yeah, done, and he walked. So they had to replace him, and they replaced him with Mike J. Nelson, who was the head writer for many a year at that point.
The episode itself is actually light years better than the actual movie that it's making fun of, and even though it only is shown for a fraction of the time. Now, the character of Mitchell is loosely, I guess, based on the popular kind of anti-heroes of the late 1970s.
Oh, it shook up the beers pretty bad. Hey, cut out that Rockford music. I'm Mitchell.
The main story is the murder of a burglar by John Saxon. Then it kind of drifts onto this subplot that Mitchell gets kind of cast aside, and he's like, oh, you're on this 24-hour surveillance. And then they actually only have it like a 12-hour surveillance because Mitchell's the only guy, and then the police are just monstrously inept in this film.
Mitchell,
Why?
people don't like you. In fact, I don't care for you myself. Why is that?
Perhaps our brief but bitter affair?
There's also a kind of love interest of the film, and really, who would be attracted to like a drunken, disheveled, borderline stroke victim like Mitchell, other than I guess a prostitute who's being paid to? So that's really the only part of the film that actually makes sense.
Yeah, a prostitute that he busts after he finds out that she's a prostitute and has weed on her, and is like, "Oh, I'm taking a bribe. Oh, better bust her." And then he tries to kiss her and explain that he loves her in the police station while he's getting her arrested.
Yeah, and then it's totally believable that after the prostitute is released from her $500 bail, she just calls him a jerk and then is still in love with him after one night of being paid off to sleep with him, and then she sticks with him through the end of the film, and then he busts her anyways.
They flat out rip off the end of Key Largo with Edward G. Robinson and Humphrey Bogart. If you'd like to see a good movie, I would suggest that one.
There's also a scene where Mitchell is such a lazy drunk that when he wants to question a guy for no reason, the guy runs away and Mitchell just shoots him instead of chasing after him. It's like they made one version of the movie and then reshot half of it to patch up plot holes that didn't make any sense, but then they just created more plot holes in the process.
I think the best way to sum up Joe Don Baker's career is when Crow, at the beginning of Final Justice, it's another episode of MST3K, is when Joe Don Baker's name appears, he goes, "Oh my god, I wish I was illiterate so I didn't have to read that."
And you know what? I'm sure Joe Don Baker is the nicest guy in real life, but he just shouldn't play a lead role. There's some actors that you see on screen, and they're the perpetual B-movie side characters, and you wonder why they never get those leading roles. Mitchell is a great example of why some people aren't meant to lead.
Now, this is the episode where Mike Nelson took over the show. I always preferred Mike over Joel, but Joel had some of the better films, which is a little unfair, but it's just one of those things. Because Joel had all the Godzilla films and a lot of the giant monster movies. He had all of Gamera. But I always liked Mike J. Nelson just because I thought he was a little quicker.
You know, if you have a night where you got some buddies over and you just want to giggle and make fun of stuff, this is the perfect movie.
Yeah, it's also the perfect movie to jump into the MST3K universe. Because you can see how Joel worked, you can see who Mike is, and then it really just kind of ties everything together. Well, thankfully, one of the only saving graces of this thing is half of the soundtrack. Now, every now and again, you're going to get the Waka Cha Waka kind of soundtrack, because it's a 1970s cop movie. I mean, those guys really, really do it well, and those guys really just insert their own songs over top of it.
Mitchell,
Your eye on the sandwich,
Mitchell,
heart's pounding,
Mitchell,
veins clogging.
Mitchell.
And then you have the actual soundtrack to this, including My Mitchell, which is the worst song I've ever heard in my life.
Whole shebang, arrest and pay.
My God,
No!
They try to like make him the everyman cop, but he's really just a total douchebag.
I don't think I've ever heard so many personal hygiene and sandwich beer jokes packed into an hour and a half. It's probably one giant advertising for Schlitz and Old English and just drinking in general.
And the only reason it's alive today is because MST3K touched it. That's it. That is the only reason this movie is still alive. Because quite frankly, no one would want to see this film.
We hope you found the review somewhat enlightening.
So stick around, enjoy, and hey, Death Wish next week. Or I will devour your souls!